Hi, very warm welcome and good afternoon. It's Jim from maverickstar Observatory. I thought we'd take a look at the Earth itself at a glance, the anomalies that are taking place with our Earth, especially as it had been nearly over a month since we'd done this, and on average we usually do it every other 2 weeks. So before we get into that and looking at the details of what's been going on with our Earth, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to those superstars out there with the equipment. Recently, our new superstar over in Colombia, Michael, has joined us. He'll be sending his data. We know why that's important, because he's in the region of the South Atlantic anomaly. This is the weakest magnetic intensity on our planet, and we now have a magnetometer in that region monitoring the intensity as it further weakens and expands. As you know, if you've been following us, the South Atlantic anomaly has now begun to split into two. One part being largely over Brazil, Chile, the other over Africa. So we are monitoring that. We know that it has adverse effects on spacecraft that fly over that region because of the low intensity, offers low protection from cosmic rays. Largely what is responsible for modifying our jet streams on our planet, although a lot of mainstream organisations wouldn't agree with that. They would say it is man-made CO2. Remarkably hard to believe, as I'm sure a lot of you would agree, because CO2 is a trace gas. It only makes up 0.4% of the gas in our atmosphere. Not only that, is that the amount that man actually emits into that atmosphere is 0.0012%. So even less than what the Earth itself emits from its oceans and its land. So let's get a quick look of what's been going on with our planet with regards to CO2 in the atmosphere. It's now at 422 parts per million, so it's dropped off a little bit. Remember, when we go into interglacial periods, CO2 rises because, naturally the land and the oceans rise over a period of 15,000 years by around about 6 degrees. That 6 degrees is what puts us in an interglacial period or a glacial period. We are 6 to 8,000 years going back into the next glacial period. So what we should be looking for right now is a slow deterioration in the amount of CO2 that is in the upper atmosphere, because that is exactly what we've seen over the last 450,000 years of the cycles of the interglacial and glacial periods. We see that CO2 does rise during the interglacial period, but it also drops off during the glacial period. So, I wouldn't mind if the governments was preparing the world for the next glacial period, because surely they need to, because when it goes colder, the agricultural production land is going to drop off significantly. And with 8 billion people and an increasing to this day population on this planet, we're going to need some preparation set aside, and even by our governments, if we want to ensure the continuity of our species survives the next glacial period. So moving on with the atmospheric oxygen, much more of a quantity of gas in our atmosphere than CO2. It's at a healthy 20.95%. So, not much change there. It does fluctuate, but only around about 1%. It is a healthy quantity of gas, and thankfully it's what we need to breathe to keep alive. There you can see the latest from last month's calculation of where the magnetic North Pole is. Then we have the volcanoes in eruption are at 27, so it's up 1 from last month. The latest earthquake, there you go, 5.4 in Mexico. We have the muons per square metre in the UK at 522, and over in Canada, Kendall, one of our superstars, sent us over the last few days his muon count reading over the last week, and it is at 764. The sunspot numbers are at 5, so we are seeing slightly more activity with the solar output, which is a good thing, because it needs to, because we need to keep that heliosphere inflated in order for us to receive that protection from galactic and outer galactic radiation, or inbound radiation in terms of cosmic rays. Because as you know, our primary shield, the Earth's magnetic field, as it's gone through a weakening of around 122 years now, it has sustained a 20% loss in its protection, and therefore is allowing more interaction with cosmic rays in our upper atmosphere and the atmospheric gases. The geomagnetic field is unsettled at the moment. X-rays are at normal, and the jet streams, as we know, are unstable, seeing that the polar jet streams and subtropical, both over the northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere, are intermixing, and we are also seeing a new anomaly now, which is increasing the monsoon season by about threefold in regions like Pakistan, Afghanistan, and this week in the Philippines, displacing millions of people as a result of that extra flooding. It's to do with the interchange between the two subtropical jet streams, both over the northern and southern hemisphere, crossing the equatorial region, and that is what gives us a threefold cascading effect with regards to that flooding. So that's our Earth Alpha at a glance. I wanted to show you something else just before we go, because I think you'll find it very interesting. So let's get on with that. So what I wanted to just briefly talk about is the sea ice extent maps that we have on our website. It's a page dedicated to monitoring the level of ice over the Antarctic, and more particular over the Arctic Circle, because what we're seeing is now over a 10-year trend play out, and this chart here shows us exactly that. What you can see on the bottom there, today's date, this is the latest information on the Arctic sea ice extent, and you can see that the red line represents 2022, and we're at the point now where you would actually look at the Arctic sea ice to get a representation as to how much ice has either been lost over the Arctic region or gained over the Arctic region. And you can see that that red line is above all the other lines going back to 2012. And around June we nearly surpassed the average 1972 to 2021 line. But what that represents at the point in time where we are right now in September going on to October is that we have now witnessed over nearly 3 million kilometres of ice rebound now over that 10-year period. And at the same time we hear nothing on mainstream media at all. Nothing from any, mainstream organisation in charge of monitoring this. Nothing from the meteorological organisations or the climatologists. Isn't that a shock? Because just to put that into perspective, that has rebounded over the Arctic Circle is equivalent to the land size of the entire Europe and England and Ireland. You'd think that would be worth mentioning, wouldn't you? But of course it won't be mentioned, because it goes against the grain of what they are trying to pacify us with. The fact that the Earth's climate change is a result of global warming. And of course that wouldn't go down too well if they showed the Arctic sea ice extent maps, would it? Showing a rebound of vast quantities of ice on our planet. Now we are, if you've been following this on this YouTube channel and visiting our website, we are in the acceptance of climate change. It is happening, and we know that the climate is going to go much colder. We have surpassed, probably as a result of seeing this ice rebound, that thermocline that I've talked about many times. But I would like to just say this: I think it is very early. 10 years record still is not enough to go by for 100% certainty, but it surely does look like there is a change in patterns, because year on year you can see almost an average amount of ice being rebounded. back over the northern hemisphere, and therefore, according to that Milankovitch cycle, that where for nearly 95,000 years our Earth remains on an elliptical orbit, and then changes to a spherical orbit, which we are just leaving now, and going into an elliptical orbit, will drive us without no doubt back into a glacial period. So, I don't want to say for 100% certain at this point that we have passed that thermocline, but it certainly is starting to seem like that is the case, going on the last 10 years record. And 10 years is a good time to make observations on any anomaly. But I always say this, the longer time period you study the anomaly, it gives you more of a clue as to its nature, and how it changes over that period of time. We can say for certain that this Earth does go through these interchanges of glacial and interglacial periods, because we've got ice core data from various points around the world showing the same cycles of 100,000 years. We now know through science what is the cause of these cycles. It's the Milankovitch cycle. It's where the Earth's orbit changes to a more elliptical. We go a little bit further away from the sun, and away from that heat source you can expect things to cool down slightly on this planet. In general, that change of heat is around 6 degrees Celsius. That's enough to put our Earth in a glacial period, or take us out of one. I find it alarming that a lot of people aren't aware of this, and as a result of not being aware of it, they are certainly not prepared for it. And I think it's bad timing that it falls in a period where we are now going for a magnetic reversal, possibly a completed reversal and not an excursion, because we are 780,000 years back on time for that to happen. We are 500,000 years overdue a completed reversal. And we've learned a lot in our technological time period that we've been in, in the company of technology. We've learned about all these cycles, past climate history. We've got quite, a lot of data on that, so we know what to expect. But what we don't know to expect is what exactly will happen during the next magnetic pole reversal. So, that's one of the reasons why we here at the observatory decided to study it and monitor it at a resolution of every 3 seconds, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And we've been doing a pretty good job of that, and that has not been down to just me, it's been down to a lot of people helping support our observatory, with small amounts of cash that has enabled us to build the equipment, program that equipment, and relay that information to you guys on this YouTube channel, and also our website dedicated to the magnetic pole reversal. This is truly a rare event that is taking place. We are either fortunate or unfortunate to be in this time. What we do know is that these effects are catastrophic. We are already seeing displacement of millions of people around the world as a result of the altered climate. So, if you are not able to do something physically yourself about this, then why not support somebody that is doing their damn best to spread the awareness of this? Because, as I've said before, we might go to sleep tonight, all of us, and be woken by, something we never expected to happen, as happened to millions and millions of people recently on this planet. Even so, a few days ago, major flooding now reported in the Philippines. Weeks before that, Afghanistan, and I could go on and on and on. If you just type in floods and search, you'll get what's going on a daily basis around this world. Mainstream media doesn't pick up on everything. It's not just people that are at risk and people's belongings, their homes. It's also the agricultural land that keeps us alive, keeps us fed. Because when we have these floods, you know, the water lingers for weeks, if not months, and by the time the water has subsided and, you know, dissipated, what is left is fields full of damaged crops, unusable. And at a time where there has never been so many people on our planet, you know, it is alarming, to say the least. It is very alarming, because how much more can we ascertain before it comes knocking on our very own front door? So we're very lucky if something hasn't happened to us at this moment. But that doesn't mean it's not likely to, because as the days go on and nothing happens to us, it just means that, you know, our luck, you know, runs out just that little bit more. Eventually, we will all be caught up in this at some point, and that is why we say, make sure you have some basic provisions. Simple bug out bag. The ability to clean and purify water. And a little bit of food set aside. Because, as we've seen many times, even here in the Western worlds, when such catastrophes break out on, you know, innocent people, the government is very slow to respond and react to that. And therefore, you know, we only have ourselves to look out for. So if you can, put some stuff away for you and your loved ones. Also, if you can, put some stuff away for a few other of your neighbours, because they might not have even heard about this. Let's face it, 98% of the world are completely in the darkness with regards to the magnetic reversal taking place. 98% of the people on this earth believe that this climate change is a result of man-made CO2. There is a lot of lies being told. The corruption is at its maximum right now and increasing further. At a time where we should all be working together and helping each other and prepare for the coming events. Because the events that we are talking about now are long-lasting events. When we're talking about the glacial period, it takes around 95,000 years for it to return back to an interglacial period, a warmer period of time. If we look at our history as a species, we've boomed on this planet since we came out the last glacial period. And that has been because of the wide abundance of agricultural land that is opened up during that period of time. But for the majority of the time, that land is locked under ice, as we know from, you know, the history. And this is a reoccurring event. And 100% we are on the fringe of returning back to a glacial period. We're also unfortunate enough to be in the same time period as another anomaly, which is the magnetic pole reversal, and then another anomaly which is taking place, which is the grand solar minimum. Two of those spell big trouble for us as a species. So it is well worth, you know, thinking about those things. And if you certainly haven't prepared for anything, you know, you certainly need to put some things aside, some provisions for you and your loved ones. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. I know it's been a week, but I'm still here. You know, the observatory is still monitoring the events that are taking place with the Trimag every 3 seconds, with our magnetosphere sensor every 15 minutes, and every 15 minutes from all those other locations around the world that we have magnetometers. You know, we don't have all the data. It would be absolutely amazing if we could get some more magnetometers out there in the field, because the more data you get, the better results you get in cleaning up that data and charting it and looking at what is actually going on. So you know, if you know anyone who is brave enough to take one of our magnetometers on in Russia or a very close neighbouring country, then, you know, let us know and we'll link up with them and get a magnetometer out to them. Because then we would have got most of our regions covered on our planet. You know, we're in Australia, we're in Canada, we're in the United States, we're here in the UK, and recently we're in Colombia. So if we could get more magnetometers out there, it'd be awesome. The other thing to say is we have a Patreon account down there in the link in the description. If you want to become one of our patrons, you know, I certainly hope that you would like to support what we do here at the observatory. You know, we are the only observatory in the world with the Trimag system, monitoring every 3 seconds the position of the magnetic North Pole. So, you know, you might want to support just for that very fact. You know, I'm very proud of the fact that we are doing what we do here, and relaying it back to the general public, because let's face it, mainstream media aren't doing much about it, and they certainly aren't keeping us in the truth of what is going on. So for that reason, you might want to help us with a small donation, and you can do so on the PayPal link down in the description. Guys, I won't go on too much. I'll be back in a few days with an update of what's going on, and till then I'll just say this, you know, take care of your loved ones, you know, get some preps in, keep your eye on what's going on around you, and the links are down there if you want to help support us, and I'll say what I usually do. Bye for now.